What is going on, cruise fans? It's Tanner from Cruzely, and today we're going to be talking about something that might get your heart rate up a little bit. We're going to be talking about things that people do on cruise ships that completely irritate other passengers. So let's get started. So we are going to dive into some of the things that really can piss off other passengers. So number one, this is something that irritates us on every cruise. We have to just swallow our pride and get over it, but we can't stand it when people don't wait for the elevator to empty. So if you go on a cruise ship, if you've never been before, elevators are like the heartbeat of the ship. Keep in mind, ships have maybe 12, maybe 15, even 20 decks. So the elevators are constantly going up and down, up and down, up and down. And it can be a long wait to wait for an elevator. So that means when the doors open, people that have been waiting a while want to rush to get in, but you've got people on the elevator that are wanting to get out. So it's the same thing every time. People are trying to get out, people are rushing in. It's this traffic jam at the elevators. So to avoid that, just give a few seconds. All it takes is 5 or 10 seconds. Just let anybody who's on the elevator get out, and then there'll be plenty of room for you to get on board. Now, keeping in the theme with the elevators, and something that can really irritate your other passengers is if you hop on the elevator to only take it one deck. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about people that have mobility issues. A lot of people on cruises, they have to use the elevators. They can't take the stairs. That's understandable. But if you're fully capable of taking the stairs, then you should definitely use those instead of the elevator if you're going a deck or maybe even 2 or 3 decks. Number one, it's gonna be a lot faster. Number two, it's faster for everybody on the elevator. You know, if you're on deck 6 and you're going to deck 12 and somebody hops on and just goes up one deck, it just slows you down. So to keep from irritating other passengers on board, if you can avoid it, don't hop on the elevator just to go one deck up or down. Now, we know that whoever's listening to this would never, ever, ever be guilty of this one. But one of the big things that irritates cruise passengers is when people hog the deck chairs. So if you go out by the pool, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of deck chair loungers for people to sit out, get some sun at sea, enjoy the time by the pool, enjoy the atmosphere. But what you might also see is that a lot of these loungers are empty except for a towel. So what happens is, they're called chair hogs. People go down early, they put their towel in a chair that they want to stake out, and then they go off and do other things. Now, if you are putting your towel down to maybe go get a drink and you're going to be gone 5 or 10 minutes, that's no big deal. But if you're putting your towel down early in the morning with plans to come back in the afternoon, and meanwhile you think that that means nobody else can take that chair while you're gone, that is really rude to other passengers on the cruise. Don't do it. Most of the cruise lines have now implemented rules. You get about 30, 45 minutes before the staff will actually come and simply take your belongings and hold them if they're just sitting there hogging a chair. So don't hog chairs. It keeps people from being able to use a perfectly good lounger just because you wanted to save a spot for yourself. Now, the fourth thing that can really piss off other cruise passengers is when you let your kids run wild. Don't do it. You know your kids, you know if they're probably going to bother people if they're out on their own. Just don't let them run wild. If they're behaved and responsible, that's no big deal, but don't simply think that the ship is going to babysit them. So if you want to send your kids to go to the arcade, that's great. But if you're saying, hey, get out of here, I don't want to see you for 3 or 4 hours, go do whatever you want, that's not so good. So you don't want kids that are running around making a lot of noise, causing a lot of trouble and bothering other passengers. Now, we think that most people have a good handle on if their kids are going to be bothersome or not. So just use your good judgment. If your kids can handle it, then sure, a cruise ship is a great place to let them go have some freedom, some independence. But don't do it at the expense of other passengers, because it can really annoy people trying to relax and have a good time. We are coming up on the number 5 thing that can really irritate other passengers on a cruise. And this one goes back to the fact that you have so many people in a small space on a cruise ship, and that is that you don't want to make a lot of noise in your cabin. For the most part, cabins are fairly soundproof. They're pretty good considering that you've got rooms on top of you, below you, to the sides. You don't really hear a lot of noise. Where you'll hear it a lot is if somebody is stomping around or playing loud music. You'll also hear people that are passing through the hall, talking real loud, being obnoxious out in the hall. You can hear that. We've been personally woken up at 2 or 3 in the morning by people coming back from the bars on the ship and just being kind of loud and obnoxious. It's annoying and nobody likes it. So when you're in your cabin or you're in the hallway to your cabin, just be respectful, you know, keep it down a little bit. Realize there are other people. You never know, even if it's 2 in the afternoon, somebody might be trying to get a nap. Just always be respectful of your other passengers when you're in the cabin. The final thing on our list of things that you can do to really piss off other cruise passengers, this one's kind of a small one. It's not going to apply to a lot of people, but if you're an early riser and you want to go walk around the ship, you know, take in the view, don't hog the jogging track. So every cruise ship up on the pool deck will have a jogging track. For the most of the day when the pool's going and the music's going, nobody's actually jogging on this. There's too many people around. But in the morning is when you see the joggers that like to go out, get their run in, get ready for the day. This is really the only time where that jogging track is free for people to run it, because otherwise there's too many people around. So it can be really irritating if you're wanting to go out and jog and you've got people who are just simply walking up and down the ship and they're not cognizant that people are jogging. So being on the track, you can't avoid it. If you're walking from one end of the ship to the other on the pool deck, you're going to be on the track. But just keep in mind if there's somebody behind you, be aware. Don't walk 2 or 3 wide so to where you take up the entire jogging track and nobody can pass you. Just walk off to the side as much as you can and let the joggers get their run in the morning. Now, as we said at the start, we know that nobody watching this video would be guilty of any of these things that can really annoy passengers, but they're nice to keep in mind. Maybe share them with somebody else that you're traveling with, but keep them in mind so that everybody on the cruise can have a good time. Remember, you're sharing this ship out in the middle of the ocean with thousands of other people. A little bit of respect can go a really, really long way.